I had heard many sounds in my life, the crying of babies, the clatter of dishes, rain striking the roof on, sleepless nights. But the most dangerous sound is the one you don't hear at all. Silence. That morning. The house wasn't loud. There was no shouting, no arguments. Just an uneasiness hanging in the air, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I was sitting in my old green armchair. My husband had bought it years ago, the day the doctor told him he should stop standing for long periods. 15 years had passed since he died, but the chair remained steady and familiar. The television murmured softly. My tea was growing cold for once. After a long day of chores, I was simply sitting. Then the front door opened. I didn't turn around. After 10 years, I had learned to recognize footsteps. Mom turned the TV off. It was my son, Fahid, not a request, a command. I have a meeting, he added, as if explanation was unnecessary. Behind him stood his wife, Naila, a coffee mug in her hand, eyes fixed on the floor. That same apologetic expression she had worn for years, as though existing required permission. I looked at the remote control for a brief moment. I thought, this is my house. This chair is mine. Even this silence belongs to Emmy. But I said nothing. I turned the TV off, slipped on my sandals, and slowly walked toward my bedroom. Behind me, Fahad's voice followed. And Mom, the living room is our workspace. Now, you should stay in your room. I didn't close the door. I simply sat down. And in that moment, I realized something painful and clear. I had become a guest in my own home. The weight of Memorious Me room was small, but it carried decades of life. On the wall hung Fahad's childhood photograph, his first day of school, backpack nearly bigger than him. In the closet were saris I no longer wore but couldn't throw away, fabric stitched with memory. Everything around me whispered the same truth. I belonged here. And yet, outside, in the living room, my voice had no value. I sat on the bed and stared out the window. Across the street, an elderly woman watered her plants. Her children lived elsewhere. She was alone, but she stood straight. And me, surrounded by family. I was shrinking. Naila's us at lunch. The three of us sat at the same table. Fahid was glued to his phone. I was quiet. And Naila was trapped between us. Naila, I said gently, is the food all right? She startled and nodded. Double quotes, yes. Mom, it's fine. I looked into her eyes. She wanted to say something. I could see it. I waited. Maybe she would speak up. Maybe she would say, this is Mom's house. You can't treat her like this. But she cleared her plate, stood up, and walked into the kitchen. without a word. That day, nothing broke inside me. It simply went cold. The enveloped night. I couldn't sleep. I opened my wardrobe and pulled out the bottom drawer. There it was, the old brown envelope. In my husband's handwriting. It read, "When the time comes." I took a deep breath. The time had come. Inside were documents. Property papers, bank statements, and a document I had never had the courage to read. His will. I read it slowly, line by line. Every word strengthened me. Everything was in my name. Clear. Unconditional. I closed my eyes and sat on the edge of the bed. I wasn't powerless. I had simply forgotten who I was. The next morning, I made breakfast. Fahad looked surprised. So did Naila. "Mom, you're up early," Naila said. I smiled. "I have some errands today." Fahad didn't ask further. He assumed it was just another habit of an aging woman. He didn't know that when a quiet woman gets to work, she doesn't announce it. The first Kelly sat in a small cafe downtown. A cup of tea in front of me. My phone in my hand. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Hello, Mr. Salim." A pause. Then recognition. "Zubaydah, after all these years, I need help understanding my documents," I said simply. He didn't laugh. He understood. "Come by." Salim's office was small and orderly. Shelves of files, a desk built on precision. I placed the envelope in front of him. He read silently for a long time, then looked up. "Your son's name is nowhere on these papers. The house is entirely yours." I asked calmly. "And if I decide I don't want anyone living there?" He removed his glasses. "That is your right. Legally. Morally." I closed my eyes. "I don't want chaos." He smiled faintly. "Quiet decisions are the strongest ones." A hidden truth. Salim pulled out another file. "There are unusual movements in your bank account." I frowned. He turned the screen toward Emmy. Loans. Online business transactions. And a signature that wasn't mine. My hands trembled. "Fahad did this," I whispered. Salim didn't finish the sentence. He simply nodded. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity, preparing. That evening, I returned home. The living room was loud. Video calls. Laughter. The television blaring. I said nothing. I turned to Naila. "Stay home tonight. We need to talk." Fear flashed in her eyes. Fahad shrugged. "We'll see." I smiled. He didn't realize the game had already begun. The evening conversation that night. The living room was quiet. The TV was off. The windows were open. Fahad and Naila sat across from me. I placed the envelope on the table. "What's this?" Fahad demanded. I looked at Naila. Then back at him. Answers. He flipped through the papers, his face drained of color. Where did you get this? From where truth always lives, I replied calmly. On paper. The room fell. Silent. I spoke softly. Things are going to change. The room stayed quiet after I said those words. Things are going to change. Fahad was the first to react. He laughed. A short, dismissive sound, like someone brushing dust off their sleeve. Mom, let's not dramatize this, he said. You're tired. You don't understand how business works. Naila didn't laugh. She sat stiffly, hands clasped together, her knuckles pale. I folded my hands on my lap. My voice stayed calm. I understand documents, I said, and documents understand. Emmy. That made Fahad sit up straighter. What is that supposed to mean? I slid one paper toward him. He read the heading. Then the second page. Then the third. The confidence drained from his face slowly, like color washing out of fabric. You went through my files? He snapped. No, I replied. I went through mine. Naila leaned forward, eyes darting over the text. Fahad, what is this loan? He shot her a warning look. Not now. Yes, now, I said quietly. The truth on the tablet didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply placed the papers one by one on the table. Loan statements. Account transfers. Guarantees signed in my name. You used my pension as collateral. I said, you opened credit lines without telling me. And you risked this house. Fahad slammed his hand down. I was going to fix it. Naila flinched. I was this close. He continued. One more month and everything would have turned around. I looked at him. Really looked. You said the same thing last year, I replied. And the year before. The room felt smaller. Naila whispered. You told me we were saving. Fahad didn't answer. Her. He stood and paced. You don't get it, Mom. This is how men build something. Risk. I nodded slowly. And this is how women lose their homes by staying quiet. That stopped him. The rules. I'm not here to argue. I continued. I'm here to inform. I lifted my eyes. This house is mine. I am ending the arrangement. Naila gasped. What arrangement? Fahad scoffed. We live here. Yes, I said. You live here. You do not own it. Silence thickened. You have 3 months. I said evenly. 3 months to find another place. Naila's eyes filled with tears. Mom, I raised a hand. Gently. This is not punishment. I said. It's correction. Fahad's face hardened. You're choosing money over family. I shook my head. No, I'm choosing boundaries over fear. That night no one slept. Fahad stayed in the living room, pacing muttering into his phone. Naila cried quietly in the bathroom. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. Not happy, but steady. The shift next weeks were tense. Fahid stopped speaking to me unless necessary. Naila became quieter. Then, slowly, more observant, she began noticing things. The unpaid bills, the excuses. The way Fahid avoided direct answers. One evening, she knocked on my door. "Mom?" she asked softly. "Yes." She sat at the edge of my bed like a child. "Did you really mean it? About us leaving?" "Yes." Her voice trembled. "And if I leave without him?" I looked at her carefully. "That choice is yours," I said. "But whatever you choose it with open eyes." She nodded, tears falling freely now. "I think I've been afraid to be alone," she whispered. "So was I said honestly, until I realized I already was. The breaking point. Whoa. Months in, everything collapsed. Fahad's business failed. Hard. The calls came, the threats, the legal notices. One afternoon, he burst into the kitchen, red-faced. "This is your fault," he shouted. "If you hadn't interfered." I didn't flinch. "This happened because you lied," I said calmly. He turned to Naila. "Tell her we could have fixed this." Naila looked between us. Then, for the first time in years, she straightened. "No," she said. "You lied to me." Fahid froze. "You promised security," she continued. "You used her money. You used her house." Her voice shook. "But she didn't stop. And you used my silence." The room went dead quiet. The decision that night. Naila packed a bag. She came to my room. "I'm staying with a friend," she said. "Just for now." I nodded. She hesitated. "Thank you for not stopping me." I took her hands. Standing beside someone doesn't mean standing in front of them. She hugged me, not like a child, but like an adult. The end of the arrangement meant the end of 3 months. Fahid stood in the doorway. Boxes around him. Pride gone. "This is really it?" he asked. "Yes." He looked around. "You could have warned me." I met his eyes. "I did. You just didn't listen to silence." He left without another word. The door closed behind him. After the house felt different, quieter, but not empty. I painted the living room a soft, warm color. I moved my green armchair back where it belonged. I turned the TV on. Then off. Just because I could. Naila came by once a week. As a guest. She found a job, a small apartment, a voice. One afternoon, she said, "You know, I didn't lose a home." I smiled. "You found yourself." Final reflection. People think strength is loud. It isn't. Strength is knowing when to stop explaining. when to put papers on the table. When to say enough and mean it. Silence is not weakness, but when it's abused, it becomes a weapon. And sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is stop being quiet.